There are many drugs. Alcohol and tobacco are the drugs. You can just go to WHO website, and it is highlighting more. Recent research say that we will focus on gateway of drugs, not the narcotic drugs, because that is where the whole problem starts. Most of the people start using, misusing, abusing these prescription drugs, and this is many of the states. I think few people I'm seeing from Assam, so northeastern states, eastern states, and northern states, we have a big menace of the prescription drug abuse. The happiness, again, if I use drug, I get happy. I have to use drug in order to feel, acquire normal sleep. I need to use drug in order to make myself at peace or relax. So this is a kind of, the brain functions get hijacked. What happens here is, what is drug is doing, it is rewiring our brain, and it is making us, the drug and the word I use called high. A person who uses that particular substances, when these chemicals release, what it is happening, it is creating a reward pathway. It means it memorizes, hey, this particular activity you did, it is making me feel good. So I want to repeat that in order to feel good all the time. So that pathway is being established, and it takes time. It's not that overnight, because today use next day. Everyone is responsible today. It's not just youth, parents, law enforcement agencies, and a lot of other organizations. Collectively, we can do something about it and see that we keep our community drug free. This I'm not going to focus more, because ma'am has covered about this part. There are many drugs. Alcohol and tobacco are the drugs. You can just go to WHO website, and it is highlighting more. Recent research say that we will focus on gateway of drugs, not the narcotic drugs, because that is where the whole problem starts. And because the prescription drugs are legal, that means that doesn't cause harm. Most of the people start using, misusing, abusing these prescription drugs, and this is many of the states. I think few people I'm seeing from Assam, so northeastern states, eastern states, and northern states, we have a big menace of the prescription drug abuse. And when we look into the science of addiction, this is for every one of us to understand what happens to this, our brain. So I use the word here, a hijacking of the brain. So our brain functions based on our needs and survival. What happens is, once the person starts consuming drugs, the brain functions are taken over by the drug. The happiness, again, if I use drug, I get happy. I have to use drug in order to feel, acquire normal sleep. I need to use drug in order to make myself at peace or relax. So this is a kind of, the brain functions get hijacked because what happens here is, there is something called dopamine and reward pathway. I will not complicate this, as simple as that. When I use any substance, something, it makes them feel good. So this is the neurotransmitter, some chemicals released in the brain. It happens with the natural activities, like you hug somebody, you listen to some very good news, like your child got first in the class, or the favorite team won the match. So these kind of things give us some kind of a happiness. So that is what is the neurotransmitter releases in our brain. And what happens here is, what is drug is doing, it is rewiring our brain, and it is making us, the drug and the word I use called high. A person who uses that particular substances, when these chemicals release, what it is happening, it is creating a reward pathway. It means it memorizes, hey, this particular activity you did, it is making me feel good. So I want to repeat that in order to feel good all the time. So that pathway is being established, and it takes time. It's not that overnight, because today use next day. So usually in the initial phase, we see a person using the substance. It takes, few days again. I just feel, I want to feel good. Like you see the pattern, if you know anybody who's into the drug use, when we do that retrospective study, hey, from the first use, when it become a regular use, they will say it started like regular use, like we want to enjoy, we want to have a party, like a group of students. This weekend we'll do something good, exciting. So that becomes a pattern of use. That is why, because my memory center has registered that which has given me immense happiness, and I want to repeat that activity. And when I'm talking about this neuroplasticity, I want to give an analogy like, the adolescent brain is like a wet cement. Whatever new habits which will have an impressions in our brain. What is going to happen is, in a wet cement, if you disturb that, the kind of wiring of the brain, what happens is that whatever we do at those kind of those situations, what will happen is those habits we try to register and we try to repeat them over a period of time. So then the brain starts acquiring. So anything, I want to be content, I want to be happy, I want to be away from my sadness, I want to be away from loneliness. All the risk factors, what we mentioned, the stress, the problems, all these things, we feel that we got already acquainted with that kind of a habits where I am feeling sad, my substance will make me forget about my sadness. I am feeling happy, to enhance my happiness 10 times, I want to use. So this is the way our brain starts acquiring those habits, registering them, keeping them in memory, and then we want to repeat it again and again. So why youth are susceptible? Again, ma'am has covered. I don't want to discuss. But just looking at this, if you see, every aspect of our brain gets affected, especially I would say, I just want to say cannabis users, they say, we have a super sensory perception. Like, why do you want to use, in Hyderabad, we use as ganja as a name. So why you want to use this? They'll say, when I use that, I feel I can hear clearly, I can experience the nature in a better way. So your sensation, not only that, a person who is consuming more alcohol, they don't experience the pain. So the pain center gets affected. Everything is hijacked. It mimics or it alters whatever our experiences, and it accommodates according to what the substance, whatever the drug we are using. Our coordination, our vision, the acuity will get affected. The movement becomes staggered. You see, the judgment gets impaired, and the reward gets, pathway gets more, what do you say, prominent here, because we repeat those behaviors again and again in order to seek the reward. This reward is again avoid pain and seek pleasure. This is the way our reward system works. And it registers all these information in our memory center, and it wants us to repeat it again and again. So this is what happens in our brain. And when I was talking about, see, all of us have rewarding behaviors, by these are the natural ones which I have cited here. But what happens with the drug is it is giving 10 times more than what the normal behavior, natural behaviors does. That is a reason, if you see a person in addiction, you see that, hey, why your hobbies are no longer being pleasurable for you? Because they don't enjoy it. They don't enjoy their favorite food. They don't enjoy spending time with family. They don't enjoy working. All these were earlier the pleasurable activities for them. So that is an important indicator or symptom for us to say, hey, this person is in substance use disorder, because all this reward is being taken over by this drug. So only the drug which makes them keep them happy, or that is again an illusion, but that is what the drug does and makes a person feel at that point of time. So we were talking about vulnerabilities, why youth, and ma'am has talked about it, but three important things which I wanted to focus on here is a low self-esteem. Lot of women cases when we interact, you have a negative self-image, you don't respect yourself, and you start seeing people, yourself from the other people's perspective. That is where we wanted to focus on in the young children, and we made that as one of the part of the life skill program. And many of the youngsters, because of the misinformation, when we give a talk in, the school setting or educational institutions, a UG, or the first thing they pick up the misinformation about the substance, and which is very much available in our social media, even a Google search. So the authentic sites, that is another strong message we want to give, that anything you want to know about it is the right information. It can be NIDA or it can be HO or NIMHANS in our MSJ in our country. And there is Manas helpline. I'm going to give that number. So this is about from the Ministry of Home Affairs. All these you have a right information, UNODC. So this information is authentic information. Whatever, you have to see the other side of the coin also. So, and the social acceptance, this is a peer influence, peer pressure. And not only that, easy access. Now the technology is ruling and every child has, access to. And when we're talking about, ma'am has made 4 verticals and it is intertwined. This is a word she has used. I would say that the technology, the digital platform is another thing which go hand in hand for a person. See, most of the people, children, they open up the vulnerabilities on a social media and they get groomed by the predator, because one of the profiling where we have done, the peddler was grooming who are vulnerable. So it is easy. You're pouring your information or your daily activities on social media without understanding, you're showing a vulnerability to the predators. So this is where, and the AI is another thing. What you search, it will keep on giving you the feeds accordingly. So this is another thing where the children, especially adolescent age, because you don't understand the depth of the kind of crimes happening. That is where digital well-being, where we were also addressing drug abuse crimes along with the cyber crimes. So this is something which we are focusing, and what makes adolescent vulnerable apart from the other factors. Otherwise, for your information, I just want to say 3 P's. Always remember: pleasure, P, pressure, peer pressure, second, and the third is a problem situations. If we address, we can help the child to understand what are the alternate ways to seek pleasure in life. Those are, we call it as positive addictions. Peer pressure. So ma'am was also learning about assertive skills, which we again put it in a life skill curriculum. And the problem situations, you have to learn how to understand your problems, define your problems, identify, and then how to manage your problems, daily life problem. Because till we die, I think we are going to have our problems in our life, various problems pertaining to whatever the way we are going to live in future. But I have to learn how to identify, how to perceive it, and how to change it, or how to learn certain skills to deal with it. That is what is again a part of a life skill program. So here, when I say red flags and risk factors, who is at risk? How do we spot the signs? Here we call it as risk factors, temperament. If you see the child, we call it as again predisposing factors. It means there is a conduct disorders in children which are identified at a very early age. Early age, the tantrums, the child is very manipulative, hyperactive, and lack of sustenance of attention. These are the children you have to focus more, and they don't know how to control the emotions. Though here, again, if we want to look into the evidence-based practices in substance use prevention, we go as from prenatal, again, parenting. Parenting is one of the evidence-based practice. You have to teach a parent how to deal with your child and how to help the child to develop a positive skills. So here, or deal with their temperaments. So the personality, how you are shaping up, and we see again when we do retrospective, studies in the cases when we meet, there are all the red flags you see when the child is in adolescent age. He is like very aggressive, violent, defying, not breaking rules. Maybe he's not using substance, but all these are indicators that something is not okay with my child. Again, I emphasize what ma'am said is mental health, substance use. Again, they are interlinked. So because when we said every drug affects the way they think, they feel, and they behave. So we see the behavior disorder, we see the emotional disturbances an adolescent age, and we all know that it's a part of their personality and then upbringing. But yes, it also leaves a lot of traces where, hey, we could address these things at that point of time to avoid these kind of problems in a later stage. That is the reason I'm talking in a prevention angle. And the family addiction is there, that is more vulnerable, because I said that there is a genetic disposition and availability in a community. That is what law enforcement agencies are taking care. But yes, and in the provisions, ma'am also has informed that when I'm aware of it, I'm not reporting it. It means I am encouraging or I'm becoming part of it. So when we know there is availability, we need to report in order to see that this problem doesn't exist, or as it is alleviated. Negative relations, negative self-image, abuse, neglect, and social media technology. And I would say these recent cases where we see a lot of behavior issues in children, the OTT platforms, and especially post-COVID, we see that has a different impact because of the glorification of the drug use and the protective factors. So why we are understanding these two things is these we need to address it and try and modify, and these we need to enhance and make it stronger so that a person will make a right choice. And the discipline, that is healthy lifestyle, good self expression. You have to spend time. Again, ma'am has emphasized on communication on a daily basis, not just like, I still remember there are 2 or 3 years, the UNODC has given a theme, communication, talk to your child. So why we have to give a year theme? It has to happen on a daily basis in our families. Otherwise, we see a lot of my parents don't understand me. They don't know anything about me. And that is truth, because we see parents are unaware of, like, the child is not going to college for 4 years and they are not aware of it. After the last year, they said he's been suspended, and they expected he finished his degree, and they realized from the first year he's not going. So where there is a problem here, because the parents didn't get any kind of doubt, because the child every day he goes out but he comes back after the college hours, but what he's doing, they were not aware of it because lack of communication here. And mental well-being also is important, and positive coping skills, self-esteem. So you have to enhance all this from the childhood. That is where it can help or shield them to these kind of problems in a later stages of their life. And impact on life, again, ma'am has focused on one slide on a consequences. I'm not going to focus more on it. It is the same thing. We also see a lot of violence in the families where they reach out to the law enforcement agencies, or forcibly they want to admit them in a psychiatric unit because of the under the influence of substance. We have seen lot of children committing lot of crimes. We have cases where in the middle of the night they call and say, my son is, like, asking for money, holding a knife in his hand, and we are scared. We locked ourselves in the room. Please help us. And they are so ashamed to call the law, because the police comes and then it becomes a nuisance in the community where they live. And that is a kind of pathetic situation the family goes through when a person is under influence of substance. And we hear a lot of distressing stories. This is to highlight that drugs just don't harm the body or the person alone, but they shatter their lives, the people whoever are living with them. That's a kind of a thing which we see. In the photo, you can see Shilpali ma'am here. We have started, what is the role of students here? There is a UNODC program. Whoever is youngsters in this group who are listening to me or later they listen, you can become a smart influencer. See, peer pressure, when we are talking about, they can pressure the people to become positive also. So students as change agents, what again, emphasizing what ma'am has told. And this is where a 3 R's approach: refuse, resist, and report. Report is also very, very important. And when we say this is not our problem, it means we are letting the problem seep into our lives by not reporting. And that is where we see a lot of today, if we could have done that approach 10 years back, I don't think I would have been a jobless by this time. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So the reporting, resisting, that is assertive skills, refusing. And we are also focusing on that safety clubs, what ma'am has told to, that is educating the peers, empowering them with the right knowledge so that they can become a prevention influencers is what we believe. And it worked because it's an evidence-based practice. And we also have recently, this month, June, it was anti-drug day or World Drug Day has come. So we have conducted a week-long activities where we have launched media-based prevention programs also. So where the youth, there is an Insta Reel challenge. You can influence others to, get into a positive life or positive addictions. So this is something students can become part, they become a change agents. And this is Safety Club launch. Future, again, we will share what the work we have been doing and how we are progressing. And there are youth leaders also. There are a lot of youth initiatives, especially one I see Vishwa doing it. From bystanders, we become leaders. So youth also can lead the change. There is a program UNODC has launched, Friends in Focus, building life skills. This is the government of India has launched the life skills education. It's got peer-led intervention program. So the peers we empower with this book, they become it is an activity based. And we are trying to do that right now in our future launch of this club. And there are volunteer campaigns by UNODC, Listen First, Youth in Focus, Engaging Youth in Prevention. You can just go through the website. There are a lot. You can also become part of it if you are interested, and you can become part of it because we need more volunteers to go through this or make this program successful. There is a Manas helpline. This is by the National Narcotics Helpline by the NCB, and we have lot of local NGOs working on this issue. You can take part in any of these things, and you can become leader, see the change what you want to see. And the parents, whoever is listening, I'm going to leave this slide, I mean a part of this PPT, but understanding, because we also educate the parents how to recognize the early signs, because most of the time we see the parents have missed out on that red flags, and they reach after all the damage and disability happened, and they land up in legal cases. That is where we see they're coming to seek help in rehabilitation. But that is a third level of prevention. We could avoid all that by recognizing early signs. So please do that if there is a sudden change in your behavior. Most of the parents saying, hey, this is a part of the adolescent age. Let's not, focus more on it. Drop in academic performance. There is a loss of interest, the secretive behavior. Most of the time we see they lock up the doors and they listen to loud music. They sleep at wee hours and get up, late in the afternoon. Change of friend circle. We have seen one of the case where mother could see that, but she took 2 years of time to understand that that friend circle is somebody who is a peddler who's coming to her community and selling the drugs to the child, and then making the child also a carrier. So you notice it, but you don't want to highlight it because you felt, hey, why it affects my relationship with my child? Maybe she needs a change. So let us not deny, become blurred with but a love affection. Rather, see the things with clarity and objectivity, understand what's happening around us, and then be vigilant about it. So usually we see a lot of parents, they see that unusual smells, breath, and they also see that lot of powder leaves in their room, but they don't want to address it. They take a lot of time because they don't want to, for them, the reality hurts. That is also another problem we see in parents where they don't reach out to help on time. Neglected appearance, missing valuables or money at home. So what you can do, you can talk to your child first. Most of the time when they know about this, the first thing I would say 2 days, 3 days back, the way the parents have approached the child is punitive attitude. You just lock up the child in the room, take away all the things. Instead of talking to the child, if you do that, you are losing your child for sure. Immediately, consult the school counselor or teacher. See that always parent has to collaborate with the school, because that is where, or the educational institution, wherever your child, because the collaboration is very important. I always see there is a disconnect between parents and the school or a college. And college also, like the schools also used to say, hey, once they step out of our school, it's none of our business. So it cannot be that. It has to be a collective approach. We have to come together if we have to shape up our child, as a productive citizen. You have lot of helpline numbers I have given here. NIMHANS, it is in Bangalore, but here you can reach out to the local NGOs or the de-addiction centers. But ma'am has given a number. They also can redirect you to the local NGOs who are working. And you also can reach out to me if you want more information or any kind of help. But yes, this is what the parents need to do. They have to learn. There is something called a NIDA family check. Go through the website, how to talk about drugs with your children. Not just because you found out the child is using, but this is becoming, before the problem starts, you address this issue, tell the child, let the child know the first information from you and the teacher. Previously, the schools and the at home also they used about, hey, why unnecessary giving information about this? The child who doesn't have the information, now he will learn about it and he will start doing it. No, that is completely wrong. Let us not have that kind of perspective. Talk about it, communicate, you set boundaries, and you model healthy behaviors. We have seen children challenging parents. You don't stop doing, but you are preaching us. So see that what you say, let the child, let the family rules be. Maybe we may have to sacrifice because we have chosen to give birth to a child. So let us raise in a right way. Let us model healthy behaviors to the child. I'm not talking about substance use in many other aspects also. Maybe that is a sacrifice as a parent we may have to do. Yeah, I had to learn this fact, with a very late, but early signs we have to recognize immediately, seek help. Teachers also have a role to play creating drug-free schools. There is something in our future project we are trying to do is helping empowering teachers with a thought. There is a manual for substance use prevention in school setting by NISD. It is our central government body. We wanted to help teachers how to identify warning signs. Here also, lot of teachers. I have seen one case where the teacher has gone through some webinar like this, and then she identified one child who was 95 plus. Suddenly he stopped coming to he comes to the campus but doesn't enter the classroom. And he's always seen, under a tree or back of or near the washroom kind of thing. But she took that extra effort to understand what is happening with the child. And then after few days of observing, she understood that something is wrong with the child. He's very lazy, lethargic, not active, and apathetic, and he's looking through the people and smiling to himself. That is where she felt something wrong because she could identify the early signs. Immediately, she reported to the parents, authorities. Authorities, with the evidence, they have filmed him, what he's been doing. Yes, he's into cannabis use. Immediately, they have referred him to the de-addiction center. Good thing that at the early phase they could, take that initiative. If teacher felt it's none of my business, my business is only to teach children and go away, my work is done. And the parent or not parent, the principal also felt, hey, as long as he does this kind of activities, I will suspend and then let him come back after, getting better. I don't think he would have really changed. So the collective effort has helped this bright child not getting deep into the problem and then getting back into the normalcy. So this is where the teachers can do when they observe all these these early signs. Always don't shame, name the child, please maintain the confidentiality. Non-judgmental attitude, which is lacking in lot of the teachers. That is where we want to train the teachers. You observe, you preserve the confidentiality, you report in a right mechanism. Don't try to spread the rumors among the teachers because you are crushing the chances for him to, become better in future. So this is we are trying to do with the help of our project, with this training of teachers. The communication is key again. Let's talk, but how? We have to have empathy. That is what, when we are into this training, we want to emphasize, and people here also can pick up. It is the qualities which we need to have. Actively listen. Don't judge, you support. This is what we teach even parents also. The underlying is you want to help your child not to get into the problem. So maybe you have to learn how to be non-judgmental, how to be open. Empathy, validation, active listening is very, very important. At least you are connected or bonded with the child, and the chances for the child to listen. Because even if you put in a rehab, we have to apply all these qualities. And then that's the only way, evidence-based practices, we have to deal. Punitive way, we cannot really bring change in the person. And the prevention strategies, what actually helps. I was talking about evidence-based approaches. There is life skills programs, peer programs, school policies. This is what the schools have started, the Prahari groups or the, anti-drug abuse committees, ADCs we say, and safety school clubs. So they are doing their part. They are bringing the policies. and making the policy very clear to the children. And lot of educational institutions, when ma'am said like we did ADCs, all the UG and PG universities have done kind of an induction program where they emphasized it's not just 100 pages booklet you give about the policies, but rather focus it induction program in every college where you say, hey, what are do's and don'ts, what happens if you see. So the child or the student is informed. We are making them make an informed choices here. So here, these are the resources where life skills education, peer-led intervention we will be using, and the clear consequences we will say about the school safety club, Prahari club, Suraksha Kavach. These are the various programs we are running in Hyderabad. Engaging youth in art, sports, community action. That is again part of our prevention strategy we are trying to do. It's not just you go and give a lecture on World Drug Day, but rather engage the students in various activities where they will come up with their own creative way of how to stay away from the substances. So ma'am has focused very clearly about what our law says and where to get help. Yes, you're not alone. Help is closer than you think, in your fingertips. There are a lot of helpline numbers. TGNB ma'am has given the number. Please note down. And there are school counselors. I think CBSE has made it mandatory that there should be a school counselor. Reach out, talk about your child when you identify any signs, collaborate with the school authorities, see that if at all you needed help, you can reach out to the addiction centers or online counseling. This is where I'll be available also. You can take down this number and reach out to me. In summary, I would say that these are the resources I have picked up this information. Strong mind, safe choices. First, students, be informed, know the risks, understand the brain development, identify warning signs, make a smart choices. 3R I was talking about, refuse, resist, report. Avoid risky situations, focus on goals and activities. Support your friends, encourage healthy behaviors, be positive, speak up. You have a trusted adult or a person whom you can ask for help. So this is what peer-led intervention groups does. So this is in summary. In call for action, this is a Nasha Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. You can take a pledge. It's an online e-pledge. You can start up the momentum. So being choosing a drug-free life. And everyone is responsible. Today, it's not just youth, parents, law enforcement agencies, and a lot of other organizations. Collectively, we can do something about it and see that we keep our community drug-free. And thank you so much. I want to end this, the PPT with the quote. Today, well lived, make every yesterday a memory of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. This quote is given by Kalidasa, not by me. Thank you so much.
Question I have is, which states in India are susceptible to more drug abuse?
The famous or infamous Punjab,
Okay.
Kerala.
northeastern states. Then I think the highest is in Mizoram, as per a study which has seen. Surprisingly, the northeastern states are more, used to drug abuse. Then probably, what would you add? Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland from northeast, UP, Bihar, probably. Even in rural areas, we find this because of the poverty and the poor mental health.
Ma'am, I will just share.
And also Goa. I'm not speaking in terms of statistics, but it is a general study, general perception we have from law enforcement angle.
This is something the local statistics, ma'am. World, Asia, India. This is the Indian map. 1 second. You can see this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a prevalence rate. Sikkim seems to be high. Himachal, all this belt with Odisha again next. This is about the cannabis, ma'am.
Yes.
Also, the Manipur, the northeast, why I'm saying is it is closer to that Golden Triangle area. The access, the import, the trafficking routes are more towards northeastern states.
And you have asked, ma'am, reported addicts in India. Usually, our Ministry of Social Justice Empowerment take, every 10 years they will take the statistics, national survey, they will do population survey. So they will be using some form called DAMS and they will be taking this. According to them, 44% of reported addicts in India are trying to give up drugs, but only 25% receive treatment. And again, these statistics are reported. I'm talking about a lot of unreported people will be there, and even the rehabilitation centers, which fall into, I think somebody have answered. Go to the MSJE website. What are the government is doing, they are supporting rehabilitation centers. Every state, they have given the provisions and the funding. So according to those statistics only, this is given. But I would say that what you are seeing, the figures and what actual figures always differ. As a researcher, I would say that this is about the conviction part. Yeah. You have asked this question, ma'am. Only 25% of the people are receiving treatment in India.
And conviction, you were saying how many are convicted?
This is again NCRB stats. This is 2020, ma'am. The next one has to come after new reported cases. These are the things I think ma'am should be knowing NCRB data.
I should check.
Yeah.
So around 40 to 50,000 people across the country are.
It will be more, ma'am, because there will be another new presentation. You can ask, ma'am, the resources is TGANB, their website, you can go. They will be keep on giving the conviction rate and how many people they have booked under this case, how many peddlers and how many consumers are booked. All this, our local state government, you can go to the TGANB site, ma'am.
Is there a connection between the Manipur unrest and drug lords?
No idea.
Not much well versed with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with respect to conviction rates, what I would like to add is, I can't tell about the exact figures right now, but definitely the conviction percentage under NDPS Act is more than any other general, presently BNS, earlier IPC, or any other acts because of the detailed and specific procedures that are elaborated in the NDPS Act. So where the police officer goes as per the given procedure, prescribed procedure in the act, that will suffice the courts to give the conviction. So that is the beautiful act that empowers the police and helps the prosecution in getting or securing more conviction.